They threw me out without letting me explain. I remember standing in the cold, still trying to understand how everything had collapsed in a single night. No one looked at me the same way again. Their silence was louder than any accusation. Elliot Vance had always believed that honesty was enough to build a life. He trusted people, especially the ones he called family. But that night changed everything. A body was found inside the house, and before he could even process what had happened, eyes turned toward him with quiet certainty. He searched his own memory, trying to recall every moment, every step, but there were gaps he couldn't fill. Something felt wrong, but no one was willing to listen. Doors closed. Voices hardened. The truth didn't matter anymore. Lenora didn't defend him. She didn't even question it. The distance in her eyes hurt more than the accusations. It was as if she had already decided who he was. When they forced him to leave, he realized something deeper than betrayal. He had been replaced in their minds by a version of him that never existed. And somewhere inside, a quiet thought began to grow. If this wasn't the truth, then someone had created a very convincing lie. Before everything fell apart, Elliot believed he had finally found his place. The house was large, always quiet, filled with people who spoke politely but never warmly. He tried not to notice the distance. Instead, he focused on doing everything right, being respectful, helpful, and careful with his words. He learned their routines, their preferences, even the small details that might earn approval. Still, something always felt slightly off, like he was being watched and measured. Marcus made that feeling worse. There was something in the way he looked at Elliot, sharp, questioning, almost as if he was waiting for a mistake. Their conversations were short, often tense, and left Elliot uneasy without knowing exactly why. Lenora remained calm and distant, as if balancing two worlds. Elliot trusted her, believing that whatever silence existed between him and her family, she understood him. Days passed in a strange kind of peace. Everything seemed stable on the surface, yet there was an unspoken tension that never fully disappeared. Elliot ignored it. He told himself that time would fix everything. He didn't realize that some tensions don't fade, they wait. The storm grew heavier as the night went on, wind pressing against the windows and thunder echoing through the halls. Inside, everything felt unusually tense, though no one said why. Elliot remembered walking through the corridor, trying to ignore the strange unease building inside him. Then came the scream. It cut through the silence and pulled everyone toward the same place. Celeste was lying on the floor, motionless. The scene was violent, far worse than anything Elliot had ever seen. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Then Marcus stepped forward. His voice was sharp, certain, and without hesitation. He pointed directly at Elliot. The accusation came too quickly, as if it had been waiting for the right moment. Confusion hit Elliot harder than fear. He looked down and saw the blood on his own clothes. His mind went blank. He tried to remember, to make sense of it, but nothing came back clearly. People started stepping away from him. When the authorities arrived, everything felt controlled, almost staged. Questions were asked, but not deeply. Decisions were made too fast. By morning, it was called an accident. But inside the house, no one believed that. And Elliot was no longer welcome there. He left without arguing. There was nothing left to defend. The place that once felt like home had turned into something cold and closed. Every face carried the same quiet judgment, and no one asked him to stay. What stayed with him the most were Lenora's words. They were not loud, not emotional, just final. He waited for doubt in her voice, for even a small sign that she believed him. It never came. That silence broke something deeper than anger ever could. The city became unbearable after that. Every street reminded him of a life that no longer existed. So he disappeared. No goodbyes, no trace. He chose a new name, Adrian Cole, and built a life where no one knew his past. Years passed, but the memory never faded. Some nights were quiet, almost normal. Others brought everything back, the storm, the faces, the moment everything shifted. He tried to move forward, but one thought refused to leave him. If he had no memory of committing the crime, and no reason to do it, then something else had happened that night. And whatever it was, someone had made sure it stayed hidden. He returned quietly, without announcing his presence or revealing who he was. The city had changed in small ways, but the house remained almost the same, standing with the same silent weight as before. Elliot was not the same man who had left. Time had sharpened him. He no longer reacted quickly or trusted easily. He watched, listened, and waited. From a distance, he began to study them. The Holbrook family still held influence, still carried themselves with control, but something beneath the surface had shifted. Their confidence was no longer steady. It showed in small details, hesitation in speech, tension in their movements, the way they avoided certain conversations. Each of them seemed to carry something unspoken. Elliot paid attention to patterns. Who avoided the past? Who grew uncomfortable at certain names? Who stayed silent when questions were left hanging? None of it proved anything on its own, but together it formed something clearer. This was not the behavior of people who had moved on. It was the behavior of people who were still hiding something. And for the first time in years, Elliot felt certain that the truth had never been lost, only buried carefully, waiting for someone patient enough to uncover it. Elliot began searching where no one else cared to look. Old documents, quiet records, and people who had long been ignored became his focus. He avoided attention, asking simple questions and listening more than he spoke. Most people remembered little, or pretended to. But time had made some of them less careful. Martha was different. She had spent years inside that house, watching everything without being noticed. When Elliot finally spoke to her, she hesitated at first, then chose her words slowly, as if deciding how much truth to release. She told him the night had not been natural. Certain things had been arranged in advance. Small changes, easy to miss unless someone was looking closely. Elliot followed those details. He checked timings, movements, and patterns. One thing led to another, and the picture became clearer. The darkness that night had not been accidental. It had been controlled. More troubling was what he learned about himself. Something had been added to his drink earlier that evening. It explained the gaps in his memory, the confusion, the lack of control. This was never a moment of chaos. It had been prepared carefully, step by step. And Elliot had not been the cause of it, he had been part of the plan. Elliot chose to watch them one by one, never rushing to conclusions. He focused on small moments, the kind people forget to control. Marcus was the easiest to read on the surface. His anger appeared quickly, but it never stayed steady. There was something behind it, a tension that did not match simple hatred. At times, his reactions came too fast, as if he was trying to stop something from being said. Lenora was harder to understand. Her calm had changed over the years. It was no longer controlled, it felt heavy. She avoided certain places in the house and rarely held eye contact for long. When she thought no one was watching, her expression shifted, showing something closer to regret than fear. Uncle Raymond remained the most controlled of them all. His behavior was steady, almost too steady. He spoke carefully, never revealing more than necessary. That same calm had been present years ago, and it stood out even more now. Elliot noticed how they avoided being in the same room for too long. Conversations ended quickly when they turned toward the past. No one spoke openly, yet everything in their behavior suggested the same thing. They were not protecting the truth. They were protecting each other. While searching through the old house, Elliot came across a worn leather diary, hidden in a drawer that no one had opened in years. The pages were yellowed, but the handwriting was clear, Celeste's, sharp and careful. He read each entry slowly, letting her words sink in. She had discovered something dangerous, something that could destroy the family's reputation and power. The Holbrooks were involved in dealings that went far beyond what anyone outside the house could imagine. Celeste had planned to expose it all, piece by piece. But the final entry stopped him cold. Her words were different, urgent, fearful, and full of warning. If anything happens to me, it's not Elliot. It's someone much closer. Elliot felt the weight of those words settle on him. The doubt, the years of blame, the lost life, it all shifted in an instant. Everything that had seemed like random misfortune now had direction. The truth had been written down all along. Someone in that house had acted to silence her, and it wasn't him. The diary revealed the first real path toward understanding what had truly happened that night, and toward finally confronting the lies that had lasted 20 years. Elliot sent the invitations quietly, careful not to reveal too much. When the night came, the house looked the same, yet heavier, as if it remembered every secret. He welcomed them politely, letting them settle before speaking. Then he stood and removed the mask he had worn for 20 years. The name Adrian Cole vanished, and Elliot Vance returned. Their faces shifted instantly, shock, disbelief, a flicker of fear. He didn't wait for them to speak. One by one, he told them what he had discovered, the manipulated events, the hidden actions, the lies that had been carefully maintained. He spoke calmly, but each word cut through the years of deception like a knife. When he reached Marcus, he paused. Every eye turned to him. Marcus, once so confident, now faltered. His anger became nervousness, his certainty vanished, and cracks showed in the facade he had built for decades. Marcus tried to defend himself, but Elliot already knew what had been done, what had been hidden. The room was tense, the air thick with unsaid truths. Yet, even as Marcus began to crumble under the weight of accusation, Elliot sensed the final piece of the puzzle was still waiting, something no one had expected, something that would change everything again. The room fell silent as everyone looked at Marcus, finally convinced he was the one responsible. His hands trembled, his face pale, and for the first time, fear replaced his arrogance. Then Lenora spoke, her voice soft but steady. No. Marcus didn't do it. Every eye turned to her, and the shock was immediate. She swallowed hard, then told the truth. She had killed Celeste. Celeste had discovered the family's secrets and planned to expose everything. Lenora acted to protect her family, her status, and the life she had always wanted to keep intact. Marcus had only pointed to Elliot, not out of malice, but to protect his sister. The blame, the exile, the lost years, all had been a setup to hide Lenora's secret. Elliot could hardly breathe. The woman he had loved, trusted, and believed in had destroyed the life he had known. Everything he had endured, every lonely year, every doubt, it had been built on her choice. He looked around at the faces of the family, at the mansion that had imprisoned him in memory, and finally understood. The murder that night had not been of truth. The real crime had been the lie that lived for 20 years.